Notice what he said in verse 14, the first half of verse 14. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid of them. Why? Remember the Lord. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. It's incredible. Notice that Nehemiah didn't say, remember me. Don't be afraid of them. I got this. He didn't say, don't be afraid. I'm great. I'll take care of it. He didn't say, remember my greatness. Look at me for inspiration. No, Nehemiah said none of that. Nehemiah motivated his people with the greatness of God, and that's it. He didn't motivate the people with his greatness or some other person's greatness. He motivated them by way of God's greatness. And then he encourages the workers by simply reminding them that they have nothing to be afraid of because they have the great and awesome Lord with their back. The great and awesome God has their backs. And this is why that's important, because this is what he's emphasizing with these people. He's reminding them that the same God who had delivered his people from evil nations in the past surely would be faithful and do it again. Surely he would do it again. That's another theme we see all throughout the book of Nehemiah. We can draw confidence from God's known past so that we have assurance for our unknown future. You see, experience produces obedience. And that's why Nehemiah could obey, even when faced with fear. That's why Nehemiah could obey, even when faced with opposition. And that's what he reminded his people of, that their experience with God in the past could produce obedience with God now. So they had to choose. This is the thing we have to choose too when we're faced with that situation. We're faced with a fear. When God has called us to do something, when we run into opposition, we hit a roadblock, we have to answer this question. Do we view our God through the lens of our fears? Or do we view our fears through the lens of our God? That's the question we've got to answer. When we remember the Lord, who is great, when we remember the Lord, who is awesome, we have nothing to be afraid of, guys. As verse 20 said, I love verse 20. It says, we know that our God will do what? He will fight for us. Our God will fight for us. And here's the thing, because the Lord has promised to fight for us, instead of taking matters into our own hands, we can turn our problems over into God's hands. The God who's immovable, the God who is unshakable, takes over. And then we can immediately get back to the work that God has called us to do.